can you focus on your breath going in your nose for 4 seconds? Can you hold your breath for 4 seconds? And then can you breathe out for 4 seconds? And even for a local player or a regional player, that would transform your mood. In the invisible air, there's loads of negative thoughts that exist before you even walk on court. And there's loads of positive thoughts that exist. They're just flying over the net, just there. But what makes them come like reality is your attention to them.
How much time, I guess in percentage terms, should you be spending on your, say, weaknesses in your game versus your strengths?
You got to go on court and do your strengths. Like, they're the things that get you easy points. So those have to be practiced, every day. And then the weak areas, I don't know, I might be the first person you hear say, stay off YouTube and Instagram. Get a piece of paper every day and evaluate in each area on the court or each of the pillars in tennis, physical, mental, technical, tactical, what went well today and what did you learn for next time?
So, Alessandro, what is your mission, or sort of why do you do what you do?
Great question. One of my personal missions is to be recognized for helping players win Grand Slams, and partnering to that is to be recognized for helping players achieve whatever goal that they want to achieve. So if it's getting into a Division 1 college, or if it's just having a local tournament win, or anything personal that they find that's very challenging for them, that's one of my missions, is to make it a reality, however crazy it seems to them.
Yeah, and you were, I assume you were a coach before, like in sort of club tennis. How did you kind of move forward from that to the position that you're in at the moment?
Yes, great question. I was heavily involved in club tennis I started when I was 17, so I was volunteering. And how did I transition? I had a very rare start because I was playing professionally from a young age. I already knew where I wanted to be. So when I started coaching in England, the way it was set up, without any education or any guidance that I had, you just started volunteering. I just started volunteering. And then people convinced me that, you got to work your way up and all this rubbish. So I had to work from a volunteer to a head coach role, or assistant coach, and a head coach, and then a director, and then like an academy owner. And I actually did that. But I could have done it quicker with a bit more inspiration or a guidance or my own coach to tell me that you don't have to do it that way. But how I did it, I just did it old-fashioned way. I did 200 plus hours of volunteering, unpaid. Did that in Bournemouth, in Dorset. I did it in Bracknell, in Berkshire, in England. I did it in Spain, Soto Grande, although that was partly sponsored. And then, just did it the old-fashioned way. People started hiring me, or I started asking for money.
Yeah. And then, so did you eventually go through to that kind of head coach role, like is the kind of traditional path?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And then how did you then transition from that into kind of traveling around the world, helping these kind of ITF players to the position kind of that you're in now? Because obviously not many people are probably kind of in the position that you're in. A lot of people will go down the traditional route of, you start off as like an assistant coach, volunteering or whatever, like you said, and then maybe progress through to being a head coach, maybe running a tennis academy or a tennis club. But it's kind of the numbers of people traveling around the world, kind of like in your position, is, I would say, like a lot more of a smaller pool. So how did you kind of make that jump?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, anyone who goes into when they get to the head coaching role, you would have done it your own way with your own reasons. So my own reasons, the reason why I got into that role is because I produced good players, or people could see that they were getting better and they were performing better, and they were, most importantly, they were enjoying, like the harder it gets, they're enjoying the challenges. So that was because it's my personal mission to obviously win Grand Slams. So I got into head coaching roles because of that personal part of me. And then obviously my main mission wasn't just to be a head coach. It was never just to be a head coach somewhere. It was to be traveling and competing for slams. So how did I go into that? Well, it's because my players were getting good enough, I guess. I don't know. That's like as humbly as I can put it. My players were getting to a level where they were ready to compete to the next level. So I would travel with them.
Yeah.
Very organic.
Yeah, you earned your way there. That's just the kind of simple message from that. So let's talk about kind of your experience now, traveling around with these players on the ITF or ATP, trying to transition them into, being highly ranked players and competing for Grand Slams. You have practice, or you do practice something called, is it neuro-linguistic programming, or have I got that correct?
Correct.
If so, what is that, and kind of how does that help players that you work with?
Yeah, it's NLP for short, and it's basically how to reprogram all the subconscious things you've ever learned from when you were in the womb of your mother's belly until you are now. All the thoughts that don't correlate to your goal as to win a Grand Slam or to win a local tournament. And basically, neuro-linguistic programming, it just stands for neuro, so the thoughts you're having in your brain and the pathways connecting to the brain. Linguistic is the language, the way you talk to yourself, what words you use, what relationship you have with certain words. And then programming is basically programming the thoughts you want to have in specific moments. How that helps the players is they just basically are able to deconstruct these beliefs and values they used to have as a child or a normal person who didn't have aspirational goals as 0.1% people achieve. And they basically deconstruct those values and beliefs, and they take on ones that they have to have in order to win a Grand Slam, for example.
Okay.
And so it attacks the core of their personality. Personalities can change. It stands for personal reality. So the way you view things can change. And that's been a big part of what I do, because it helps players see something that they couldn't see before. Like they could believe something that they didn't think was possible before.
Okay, so can you give me like a concrete example, maybe even something that you've used recently? Because I'm trying to think of ways in which maybe the everyday player could even maybe use some of these techniques of, just playing in any kind of match. What I can do to kind of help myself, I don't know, stay in the moment or try and work through some of the kind of, negative thoughts that you kind of naturally have as a human being.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Put me on the spot then. So with NLP, it's about 12 presuppositions, which I could go through one of them, which is basically the map that you use to view the world. So how you view the world. So for example, you hear a lot of players at local level, club level, they might say, oh, that was unlucky, for example, or they'll say bad luck, or
classic.
So that would, classic. So we would want to reprogram that. We would actually want to take accountability for that in a positive way. So for example, if you've come off the court and it was like 10-9 in the tie break, or game points, or hit the net cord or anything, we kind of want to help the player track back in the points. And this is post-match. We want to track the player, help the player track where they could have been accountable for the whole of that match, to the point where they gave the opportunity for a let cord to beat them. And obviously, it sounds crazy, but it's just the way that a player's mind should operate, because then they can go back and actually gain power. So now you're like, oh, okay, there was that moment on juice where I double faulted. So what do I have to do? What can I take accountability for there? I have to be more relaxed. So then you start making a program on how to be more relaxed, stay in the moment. When you're saying about tools, about how to stay in the moment and things like that, a lot of people ask me that. And yes, there are tools out there that I could just give and people could apply, but I see a lot on YouTube, I see a lot of podcasts, I see a lot of people doing this. And whilst I would say it's good to just see what's out there, I think everything is a lot more personal than people think. So I would obviously always recommend meditation. And what I mean by meditation, I mean like transcendental meditation, even for a local player. That sounds a bit crazy, but it basically means, can you focus on your breath going in your nose for 4 seconds? Can you hold your breath for 4 seconds? And then can you breathe out for 4 seconds? And that's a really basic tool that you can do in between points or at the changeovers. And even for a local player or a regional player, that would transform your mood. That would transform your thoughts, because you're getting more oxygen to your brain. You're able to think clearer. You're able to move past certain scenarios. And then you wouldn't have the same ideas that you had before you sat down at a changeover. So if you were mad, or if you were angry, or you couldn't get over something, that would help a lot. But going back to your question about the NLP, that's more like mantras and what to say to yourself. So here's a crazy one that a lot of players I meet struggle to do. When they shank the ball, or when they make an error, or when the opponent hits a winner, I ask them to say thank you, which is a crazy one. But I ask them to say thank you in a pre-context established before, which is they have to be grateful for what that showed them. And that changes the pathway of their brain. So it gives them more energy. So if you're grateful for what that showed you, I mean, grateful for other people might mean something different, but for the players I work with, this is all personal things. It's not a blanket thing, but we use the word grateful. And they basically now can go, oh, I'm grateful they hit a winner against me. That means I need to hit my ball deeper. That's showing me I need to be more purposeful. I have to put the ball in the other area of the court because I'm hitting to his strengths. So you get more energy. As opposed to you shank the ball, yes, you're going to be a little bit frustrated. You're going to have a little reaction. But if you shank the ball, that means your timing is not right, or you didn't move your feet. So I'm grateful that happened, because if that happened now at the start of the match, now I know I have to move my feet straight away. But the longer I am pissed off at that certain thing about shanking or missing, then the longer it's going to take you to realize, oh, I need to move my feet.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a very far-fetched one, though. A lot of people struggle with that one.
Yeah, so I think I remember recently Djokovic talking about that this kind of on this sort of subject area, saying that it kind of links back to the breath work that you talked about, is you're going to naturally have these kind of negative thoughts or thoughts that kind of take you away from being in that moment, but it's about how you or take yourself back into that moment, right? How quickly can you recenter yourself into the present moment? I think that's quite a important point that I think like everyone can kind of relate to that and use that kind of that method or that ideology of, you know what, recognizing that your mind is drifting, whether that's like, getting frustrated about a shot someone's hit or the shot that you've hit, and then trying to, as quickly as you can, recognize that and then bring yourself back into the kind of present moment. And like that technique that you mentioned there about the almost like the box breathing, or just be paying attention to your breath. I think that's like a kind of not simple necessarily, but like a method that pretty much anyone could use. Yeah, challenging.
I challenge anyone to do it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
If anyone on this listening to this can do that for 2 minutes, then you got potential.
That's the thing, right? We get like distracted by like so many more things these days. It's just, like your phone, or I don't know, just different stimuli going on everywhere. Things are fighting for your attention. I think maybe it's just making it harder now to do these kind of things, which is why even like you said, maybe even like a meditation practice or something for like even 5 minutes a day could be, I don't know, before you go to bed or when you wake up, something like that. Just practices that kind of that technique, right, and that kind of pathway, and then maybe makes it easier for you to follow that in a match. So that's
you just reminded me, Ben, about something I told one of my players recently, which is, you're talking about tools, like how can we what can I say to give people listening like some tool to help? A lot of the times it's perspectives. So if I give it a perspective now and the person listens to this just acts as if it's true, they will go on court and play differently. For example, think about this like analogy. When you go on the court in the air, in the invisible air, there's loads of negative thoughts that they exist before you even walk on court. And there's loads of positive thoughts that exist. They're just flying over the net, just there. But what makes them come like reality is your attention to them. So whether you believe whatever you want to believe about your forehand or backhand, whatever, it's all true. All the negative stuff's true and all the positive stuff's true. So it's just when you're picking and choosing what to give your attention to. And I've realized recently that there's one moment in each tennis match where when the player decides to give the attention to the negative thought, as soon as that moment starts, the whole match is now a battle. It's completely shifted. If you can keep that as far away as you can until literally to shake hands, and maybe at the end of the day, if you can get through the whole match without giving in to one of those negative thoughts for too long, then it's much easier. But I've realized now that when I'm watching like the juniors on tour and everything, the best players are able to keep those negative thoughts at bay. Yes, they're having them, but they keep them at bay. They give more attention to the positive, and they don't give the energy to the negative as much. And that enables them to just have lots more energy and be positive. So there's this one moment per match I see in players that they just give in a little bit too long to the negative area. And then now it's just, everything's a big deal. The strings aren't working, or my shoes are too big, or the weather. So
the wind.
I would tell players, even at local level, the wind. I would just advise players that if you can keep that at bay for the whole match, then you're going to have a better development rate.
Yeah, because it affects, like you said, just your general energy, right? It kind of becomes harder to get into, position quicker, or get to the ball quick enough, or even see positive options in the shots you're going to hit, different things like that. It kind of all feeds into that, right? So yeah, it sounds simple, but is very difficult in practice. And I suppose that almost comes down to not just the time maybe before, during, and after the match, in that kind of those few hours, but just generally in your day-to-day life as well. Is like, if you can practice some of these things, that's going to feed into when you actually do hit the court, or even play whatever other sport that you play. I think you can't it's hard to just switch that kind of process on, right? Just when you go into a match. It's
exactly.
You've got to practice.
It has to be regularly practiced. It's like a habit. I mean, a lot of the themes of what I say is about accountability, and the way I just put that analogy for you is that you were choosing to focus on the negative. You were choosing to focus on the positive. And I like doing those type of themes of accountability because it makes the player realize, I'm making the choices and decisions. So it's not random when I come off court. Like at 40 all, I decided to think that. And when I give that to the player, they're like, I guess I did decide. Like, who else did it for you? Who else told you to think that? And I like doing that because it gives them more power. They're like, so if I decided to do that, what should I decide to do next time? And can I pre-program it? As in, can I write it down, put it on the bench for the stressful period? And can I read it so that when it comes to the same point, which I know is going to come because it's an emotional pattern, then I'm prepared.
Yeah, that's a massive point, I think. Yeah, like the empowering them basically to have that, that responsibility. It sounds like when you talk about it, like it's almost, I've got responsibility for everything. That almost feels like a weight, but actually it's more like it's giving you the power back over the choices that you make. So I think that's that's a really helpful way of looking at it. In terms of, let's say I'm a club player, I'm starting to play a few more tournaments, and maybe I do have ambitions of down the line trying to take my game to the next level. Is there these players that you see, because obviously you've had experience of being at academies and clubs and now on the tour, is there what is the reason, or what is the differences between the players that are getting to that level that you now coach at versus players that are kind of still at the club level or academy level? How do that, is there something in the way that they think, or what are the main differences that you see maybe?
Oh, good question. There's so many variables. Firstly, on the tour, you've got a range of like the qualies player to the main draw top players, and they're already very different. That's already almost like generations apart. So there's still a big gap. What you're talking about, like the next level, it's actually in the tournament is the next level gaps. And what I see the difference you said about, is it something people think? Yes, is the top players in the main draw and the top seeds, not necessarily all the top seeds, but special players, it is the way they think. It was back to what I just said about they just don't seem to let the negative thought affect them. Like something that the fans would have been like, oh, that's awful. They just lost a match point or, a set point. You know, it doesn't affect them. They don't give energy to it. So that one thing I think is helping players. That's the difference. But for players that are looking to take it to the next level, like from a club level, what's the difference? I think always it's going to go back down to how well trained you are. If you're getting professional kind of coaching, and what I mean by professional coaching, someone who can break down every single section of the court and expose you, basically expose how you move in every section. So on the juice side corner, I call it, like for right-handers, A deep or A plus. People call it A plus. And how is your body reacting to when the ball's there? Are you unbalanced? Can you still transfer forward? Do you put the ball back deep? And then out wide in the alley, in the A alley, and then even wider. And then you got the different zones, like behind the baseline is like the counter punching zone. And then behind that zone is the defense zone. So where's your ball going when you're back there? And where's your ball going when you're in the counter zone? And then inside the baseline, the attacking zone, are you keeping your length? Or does your length, go away? Or do you hit too long? And then when you're transitioning out of attack to approach, how are you approaching? Do you hit the ball long often? Do you hit the net? Like, where's your natural area from defense, counter, attack, transition, and then going into volleys is a whole other thing. So I think another factor that's helping people is how well trained they are in the areas I've just described.
Okay, so it becomes like a real focused breakdown of each segment of the court and the different scenarios in which you hit certain shots. It just becomes more and more analytical, I suppose, as you're getting to that higher level. I think
it's just obsessive. It's just, as you know, as a child, when you're a child, like if you enjoy sport and you go play basketball like I did, you just go shoot from every single area of the court, see which one you make the most, and you kind of figure out where your spots are. And then if you really like basketball and you're a freak like Kobe Bryant was, you'll practice all the parts where you're not good at. It's the same in tennis. I was obsessed with tennis. I was obsessed with the striking of the ball and like perfect. I want to hit the quality of ball from everywhere. So I would start practicing all the uncomfortable areas.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that leads me on to another question of how much time, I guess in percentage terms, should you be spending on your, say, weaknesses in your game versus your strengths? Because obviously we don't want to be able to be attacked so much into our weaker areas, but then we also don't want to spend too much time there, maybe, so that we're not fully utilizing our strengths or keeping that ticking over on that side of things, trying to use our weapons. So how much time, or in like percentage terms roughly, do you think you should be spending on your weaknesses versus your strengths?
I think you're going to get annoyed with my answers. I'm never going to give a specific answer, but everyone is going to tell you how much time they need to spend on their strengths and weaknesses. Everyone's going to tell you, like, I need to hit 100 serves today, at least on my weaker ones, and then I can do like whatever X amount on my strong ones. So I can't tell you exactly because everyone's different. What I can tell you, what's worked for me is, me personally as a player when I was playing, is you got to feel good like on court. You got to go on court and do your strengths. Like they're the things that get you easy points. So those have to be practiced, every day. And then the weak areas, you probably want to tackle one weak area at a time because of how much energy it takes for you. There's a reason why you're weak at it, because it's like it takes conscious thought. You haven't maybe got the fundamentals right, so you really need to like be there for a long time. So I would answer it differently, that question. I'd say work on one weakness at a time and practice what you're good at every day to get the feelings of reminding yourself of how good you are and getting better at those things.
Okay, so maybe
percentage-wise, I can't tell you.
No, that's fair enough. So it's maybe more like a focused block with the weakness, maybe in a session or each day, and then with the strengths, it's just like keeping it ticking over each day. That kind of I don't know in terms of percentages. Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Let's say I don't have a coach.
Perfect.
Maybe
I was uncoached. I never had a coach until I was.
Neither did I.
I had a proper coach when I was 17. Exactly. So we both know.
So if I don't have a coach, what are ways that I can? What are maybe the most effective ways or quickest ways I can improve? Yeah, if I can't afford a coach. And I'm still wanting to really take my game to the next level. Obviously we've got more technology these days. How much should I be using that? What techniques can I be using there?
I don't know. I might be the first person you hear say stay off YouTube and Instagram.
I might agree with that.
All of the lessons. Yeah. Honestly, I think it's distraction and just, I don't know. I don't know what the exact reason is, but it just doesn't help. I think it's unhelpful. I think also if you can't afford a coach for whatever reason, I don't know, that was the reason I couldn't as well. I would honestly try and watch as many pro matches that you like, someone that really inspires you on court. For me, it was like Federer.
Same.
And I would literally go on court and just, I would just go mimic him. Even though I had the wrong or whatever grip or whatever, I didn't know what grip it was, I was trying to get into the shapes and positions on court and have the same effect. And you kind of knew when you did it well because the ball come off your racket nice, or you won the point easier than you expected. And, we're talking fundamental, basic. If you haven't got a coach, like what are you going to do? So I would always advise go watch the pros, someone that you're specifically inspired by, and then go with your friend and just go imitate. Yeah.
And then should you maybe, in terms of technology, I'm not necessarily talking about like YouTube and social media. Okay. No, I'm talking about filming yourself. Obviously, like most people have got a phone. Should I then maybe film some parts of my game and then I can compare that visually to, say, the person that I'm trying to mimic? Would that be something that could help me?
I think so. I think a lot of people forget about the psychological impacts of that. I've realized they're doing it a lot. I've seen now. And there is a subconscious thing that happens when you watch yourself do something incorrectly a lot that has a negative impact on you. So you have to have a certain mindset. Like, I think a lot of people have the mindset, maybe me and you have, but you're just genuinely eager to see what happens. You're genuinely eager to see. And you don't know actually what's going to happening. So for that reason, I think those people with those mindsets, it's safe for them to do that. But for maybe someone who's like in a bad rut with their tennis, or they're a bit frustrated, and you keep watching your videos and you keep critiquing and trying to find details, I don't think that's typically healthy. I think instead it would be better just to get a piece of paper every day and evaluate in each area on the court, or each of the pillars in tennis, physical, mental, technical, tactical. What went well today, and what did you learn for next time?
Wow. Groundbreaking stuff. But I like the way you're trying to simplify it there, because again, you made that good point about, people almost over analyzing things as well when watching maybe like YouTube tennis tutorials or things on Instagram, in that there's like, when you watch these videos, there's like almost like a million things it feels like that are going on, and you also don't know like how that applies to you necessarily, so it can almost confuse you even more, right? And then you go out onto the court and you almost don't know what you're working on. So that's a really good point in that. Just like one or two things each time, keep it really simple and have like a focus there, I think is a really good point, because it's very easy to overanalyze things.
I think if anyone take anything from listening to this, is that what I just said is the piece of paper. If you can do that, it's like the breathwork thing. It's 2 minutes of breathwork. I bet you can't do it. But also, get a piece of paper at the end of your day or your notes on your phone and write, what did I learn? Oh, sorry, what went well? And what did I learn for next time? And you would have solved a lot. Because you know, don't you? You're like, I hit the ball. What did I learn for next time? Oh, I have to take the ball earlier. Oh, I have to be back in time. And you already solve it like that. And then you just let it go. And then the next time you go onto court, you've got your goals. You didn't need to watch no video. I mean, it would help if someone would watch you maybe kindly and say, oh, what do you think of this? How am I doing that? And you can ask people questions about the things you're working on. But yeah, good point.
Yeah, but then I guess that also requires that person to have some kind of knowledge of the game as well. So yeah, it's tough. Obviously, like ultimately...
Yeah, that's a dangerous thing, isn't it?
Yeah, ultimately you do want someone who understands the game and can provide you that outside perspective. That is kind of the point of coaching, and then it's, you know, personalized to you, because like we're saying, everyone is different and different things work for different people, whether that's technique or like the mental side of things, like you said. So I think, yeah, ultimately, even though we talk about ourselves not being coached for quite a long period of time, I certainly found when I did get coached, it did make like a big difference. And I was like, damn, I wish I'd have done this earlier, but you know, it's not always possible. So, and then you've got to sometimes, even then you might have to find, like, it might take you a while to find a coach as well that kind of gels with you and understands you. So just because you find a coach doesn't mean that you've solved the problem, because even then there's, you know, differences there in like people, you know, coach understanding how your game works and how your personality works. So it's all, you know, there's always all these little variations to it. So yeah, I think the key message. Go on.
I think I think you would be interested in this, is that I've been in front of and worked with for many years, like 10-time Grand Slam champions, like 14-time world number ones, and I'm watching them coach like my player that I'm with, and the player that I'm with is not able to receive the coaching because the player is not at that level of reception. They're not open. So while I would always recommend to go and I would actually recommend everyone to invest in some of the top coaches in the world that they've heard of, like that produce good technique for good results. You actually, even if you pay the money, you still have to be mentally in a space of reception. Like, you could pay the money and not get any benefit. I've seen it happen so many times. I've got ex WTA number ones, like 14-time Grand Slam champions, ex doubles number one, coaching the player the things that are, you know, gold. You know, I'm writing notes while they're coaching, because I like to introduce my players to like other champions. But the player is not at the mental stage of reception. They're like, yeah, but that's uncomfortable. They have an opinion. So, you know, when you're being coached, it's kind of like you have to be brave and give up what you know for that time period and forget it for a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. What do you think of the idea of trying to find? I mean, this is probably quite difficult in practice, but finding someone, like whether it's a coach or a player who's maybe like a few years ahead of you, maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and using them as a point of discussion and as a perspective, because maybe they're more easily able to relate to the struggles that you're going through at that time. Because, you know, what you mentioned there about like Grand Slam winners or top players coaching some of your players, is that maybe they're almost too far ahead, so that it's harder for them to relate to the problems that person's going through. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say that some of these coaches have mastered the act of how to simplify their message to the point where a 5-year-old could understand it. So I still think it's on the accountability of the player to forget, for that hour that they're with them, to not bring any of the knowledge you have from the last 20 years or 16 years. I would actually leave at the door and be, I don't know anything about tennis for 1 hour. And then that's what I would do. But I agree with your thing. That's also going to help.
Okay. Are there any other maybe points that we haven't talked about, maybe from your practice with your players, that maybe everyday players could use that we haven't talked about? Yeah,
definitely. I think on the physical part, I just think it's not educated as well about how demanding physically getting behind the ball is. And a top coach, and I worked with him for maybe 2 years, and I worked for his academy, Emilio Sanchez. He made me see the court a little bit differently, like the ball. He would describe to me, like, as soon as the ball comes off the player's racket, it has like a laser beam, has like a line that it goes on. And when it bounces on your side, if you didn't hit it, the line would continue to the fence. And that would be the line of the trajectory of the ball. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's challenging the way I think about it.
It comes off the... Yeah, so the opponent's on the other side, it comes off their strings, and then that is drawing a line to where it bounces on your side, and then if you didn't hit the ball, it goes past you. And that line, if you can master how to get behind that line physically, and then before it bounces, enter that line, and never let the ball hit you, so you always hit the ball, I think that is one of the top things to master. And that's a physical thing. That's also like a thing to do with your eyesight and this depth perception, IQ about the spin on the ball, the angle. But I think that's a really good tool that I learned from him, which completely changed the way I struck the ball. Started striking it cleanly, started striking it calmly. All my weight was behind the ball. But it just requires you to be very physical before the ball even is struck. You have to already know where the line is.
Okay. I think that could be useful. So, yeah. Certainly, like visually, like me, I'm trying to picture it now. I think, yeah, that could be something that helps people. Again, I like the simplicity of the message, because tennis is often, seen as a very complicated game. There is a lot that goes into it. And I think the more you can simplify the message of whatever it is, the specific thing you're talking about, the more effective that becomes. So yeah, very useful. We are limited for time, so we'll have to wrap it up there. If people want to follow what you do and your travels around the world, where can people find you?
Yeah, Instagram, Alessandro Sharafa. That's my tag. And then everyone's free to WhatsApp me. Honestly, I'm really open to people asking questions or inquiries. So I don't know if I can leave my WhatsApp. Can I leave a WhatsApp or?
I don't know. But we'll leave links in the description anyway.
817. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I might get a lot of random messages. But anyway, my Instagram's out there. So
you're going to be bombarded now. If you were busy before, you're just not going to have any time to sleep now. All right. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can get you on again at some point soon.